Welcome to our last class in the Eightfold Path to Inner Strength, class number 8. Tonight we're going to be talking about the last of the 8, which is right concentration. But before that, we're going to do a little review of what we've learned so far. So we'll start with the Four Noble Truths. Would anyone like to go through those for us, what the Four Noble Truths are? Okay, well, I'll go ahead and do that. So the first is the knowledge of suffering. The second is knowledge of the origin of suffering. The third is knowledge of the cessation of suffering. And the fourth is knowledge of the way leading to the cessation of suffering, which is generally referred to as the Eightfold Path. And that's what this class is mainly focused on, is how to alleviate the suffering of the human condition. Hi, William, welcome. Okay, so we've got the Eightfold Path here laid out for us in 3 sections. The first is the wisdom or prajna section. Second is the ethical conduct section. And third is the samadhi. So for the first one, the prajna or wisdom, we've got right view and right resolve. For the ethical conduct, we have right speech, right action, and right livelihood. And we'll review these more in depth one by one. And then for the samadhi or mental discipline, we have right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So for right view, William, you want to take us through this once more? You do such a great job. We can't hear you, William. It doesn't look like you're muted, but can you turn your volume up at all?
You know, sometimes, William, I just have to go off and come back again to get that speaker working. I don't know if that will help.
In the meantime, welcome, Josh. Nice to have you back for our last class.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Good. We're waiting.
I'm just about home, and I'll be in my peaceful place soon enough.
Okay, good.
And I saw you in Jack's meeting Saturday. That was really nice to see the group there.
Yeah, I thought you might be the Joshua that was in there. So great.
Yeah. Oh my God, he's amazing. That was fantastic.
That was a good class, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So William, now it does look like you're muted. So if you want to try unmuting yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yay.
Okay, good. Yeah, so what is view? A view means seeing, but it doesn't mean the kind of seeing we do with our eyes. It means the kind of seeing we do with our mind, like when we say, oh, I see, something like that. It means understanding in a way. Relatively speaking, it means how we see ourselves and the role that we play in creating our world of experience. And ultimately, it's an awareness of the natural state of our mind. From that perspective, to hold the view means to understand the nature of the mind as it actually is. And when we realize that on the Buddhist path, it's not like finding or creating something brand new. It's not like something we might find somewhere else either, but it's it's already our own mind, our own true nature. It always has been. So abiding in the view means to realize our own minds exactly as they actually are. It means to understand and remain aware that what we normally consider to be I and me and mine is actually a mistaken attitude, a mistaken misunderstanding of our interdependence with all beings. We need to understand that the distinction we ordinarily make between self and other, me and them, if you will, is actually somewhat of a hallucination, a mistaken understanding of our universally interdependent situation. So realizing all of that, realizing the oneness of all, and realizing our mistaken belief in selfhood, and understanding the relative relationship between action, cause, and result, and understanding that suffering, including fears, worries, restlessness, dissatisfaction, and all other forms of unease, realizing that these are our natural condition here in impermanent conditioned existence, and understanding that our discomfort and uneasiness are caused by our own craving, our own aversion, and our own blindness to our own situation. That's all the view. And in particular, being aware that our discomfort and our uneasiness are caused mostly by our self-centeredness, caused by our own self-cherishing. Being aware of all that is what's called the view. And we're encouraged to keep it all in mind, continuously, if possible.
Bravo, that was great. Even better than the ones you said before. So thank you. More thorough and more in depth. So wonderful. Thank you so much, William. That was great. So for you, those of you who have joined in a little bit late, we're just doing a review of these, the Eightfold Path, and this was the first one, the right view. So the next is right resolve. Would anyone like to go over that for us? Okay, well then I will go through that. So right resolve conveys the determination and the conviction and the perseverance and persistence that we need to do well on this path. So it's not an easy path in some ways. It does require some real effort, real intention, real resolve to stay focused on it, because it's not the kind of natural way we're brought up, especially in the West. You know, we're kind of taught a whole other set of priorities. So if we want to progress on the spiritual path, it really does take some effort, some intention, strong intention. And so there's three aspects to that. Intention of harmlessness, so not causing any pain or destruction to any living beings. Second is intention of non-ill will, so not harming anybody with angry words or harsh actions. And then the third is the intention of renunciation. So that's to always remember to be disenchanted with the illusory nature of the world that William so eloquently just explained to us. So just keeping that in mind as much as we can. Next is right speech. Anyone like to go over that for us? How about you, Michelle? You seem to have you seem to be able to relate this to this one quite a bit. Would you like to go over it for us?
Sure. Sure. Right speech. Excuse me. And what is right speech? Refraining from lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, meaningless speech, and I guess that's from the Buddha, from the Discourse of Mindfulness Meditation. Refraining from lying, always telling the truth, which is difficult in my experience. Avoiding divisive speech, promoting harmony among people. I find that to be a little bit easier. I don't know why. Not using harsh speech, using pleasing, kind, and gentle words. I'm definitely working on that one.
Good, good.
Shunning meaningless speech. Shunning meaningless speech, speaking mindfully so our speech is useful and purposeful. I feel like I have that one fairly well developed. So I think refraining from lying is my biggest challenge in terms of not outwardly wanting to lie, but like you said in earlier classes, telling little white lies to protect people. So that's something I'm still working on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tricky one when you're trying to be polite and friendly, social, and still, remain honest. We talked about how you can kind of skirt the issue a little bit too, like, does this dress make me look fat? It's like, well, the other one looked better on you, or something like that. Just if you, as much as you can, just try to, really, maybe you deflect the situation, or you kind of think of another way to say something that's not really dishonest. All right. Well, thank you, Michelle.
Yes, and sure. One other thing that came up this week for me was when we need improvement in one of these 8 fold path, one of the particular items on the 8-fold path. I don't know, how do you go about changing your behavior for any particular one that we need improvement on?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I think, to start with, it would be, just really reading over what the intention of that practice is. So, like in this case of speech, okay, we've got these 4 areas that we want to try to improve on. And I usually find that it helps to just make at least little baby steps, in the right direction. Maybe rather than just saying, oh, I'm never going to tell a lie ever again, ever. It's like, okay, I'm going to do my best as much as I can when a situation comes up when I would be inclined to lie, to find a different way to say what I have to express without lying. And then just try it and see. And then when you do, when you are able to do that, you can kind of get by in a social situation without having to lie. Then it helps to kind of give yourself a little pat on the back, and it's like, hey, that was good. You avoided telling one of those little white lies. You found a different way to say something that was still honest. So then you kind of start to get a little confidence, and then you can go a little further and maybe in even a more difficult situation where, if you tell the truth, you might really get in trouble, with somebody. You might just say, okay, I'm willing to face the consequences. I'm just going to say that I did this bad thing, and whatever the consequences are, I'll just face them, I'll deal with it. So you see what I mean? It's kind of it can be a gradual process where we don't have to all of a sudden be Superman or Superwoman or, whatever superhero. We're
Yes.
trying to Does that make sense to you? You think that would be helpful?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
What I find is that it usually takes more time that's available to tell the truth than it does to tell a fib or skirt the truth. And a lot of people don't have the time to hear the truth. That's my experience.
Yeah. Well, you're probably right. Sometimes that does take more time and maybe more effort too, to uh, think of a way to express something that's true, but, might be kind of painful for the person to hear. So you're right. It's not always the easiest way out of the situation. But in the long run, it seems to me that it's the more positive way to do it. The benefits generally are worth the effort. Just even for your own integrity, like I know with me, if I tell a little white lie, I feel pretty bad about it, afterwards. It's like, why did I have to do that? Why couldn't I just, be more honest about, what the situation was? So yeah, I think it's like training yourself, or like, you and I talked a little too about like not killing insects or, pesky animals. You take the chipmunk or the mouse, you catch it and you take it out, down the road a few miles, and then you let it out rather than killing it. And then you get, your karma improves and you get 2 little mice to take care of. Like Michelle has now. She's taking care of 2 little baby mice because their mom was killed. So, and that's wonderful to be able to kind of take care of helpless creatures. And, that's really good karma to do that, So, it's
I feel like it's a blessing.
yeah. And, maybe that wouldn't have happened if you hadn't, trapped that chipmunk that was in your attic, if you just put a trap out that would have killed it, or put some poison out, so these things have, they have effects, beyond just the particular incident where we're telling the truth or not hurting an animal. They start to change the way our life unfolds. So, yeah, they're pretty powerful, really.
These teeny tiny creatures have been a very powerful influence in my life.
Yeah, and it's these are very important things. So even though they seem like minor, oh, okay, I didn't kill the mouse that was in my cupboard. I trapped it and took it down the road. But, it's maybe the same as what someone getting pardoned that's on death row, right? I mean, that's a pretty major thing. Something like that happens. But, for the mouse, it was just as strong of an experience, as someone being pardoned on death row. And also for you, Michelle, too, it's very powerful karma when you save a life, even if it's just an insect or a little mouse or a chipmunk. That's it's making a very powerful statement to the universe, of your intention of doing good. So, yeah.
And honoring life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good. Okay, let's go on to our next one, which is right action. So, anyone want to take us through these? Okay.
Sure, I'll read them. I'll read them.
Thank you, Rosemary. Good.
So right action is respecting life and protecting all living beings. It's generously giving of our time and resources and only taking what is given. It's acting with ethics and integrity regarding our sexuality to avoid causing pain to others. It's using truthful and kind speech and deep listening. And it's nourishing ourselves with wholesome food and drink and avoiding intoxication that can lead to harm to ourselves and others. And I guess the thing that I have to say in this, it reminds me a little bit of Rinpoche's Caring book, that especially number 5, that right action is so deeply about taking care of ourselves in what we put in our body and how we take care of our health and well-being. Because if we don't do that, we can't do all the rest of it. You know, it's like there won't even be a capacity to respect life and give generously if we don't do all of this for ourselves. And even listening truthfully to ourselves and that deep listening that William was talking about. So this one's just it feels very nourishing to me that to have both that, to take right action in regards to this being, this body, this mind that's in the world, so that we can, you know, be of benefit to all beings. So I like this one.
Yeah, good. And this is actually sometimes in the scriptures it's presented as the things you're not supposed to do. So these are like the 5 precepts, you know, not killing, not stealing, not, you know, engaging in sexual misconduct, not lying, not becoming intoxicated. But I like it when it's presented this way, more the positive aspects. Okay, so these are the things that we can do, like you're saying, Rosemary, that help us, you know, be able to embody these teachings, you know, because we're doing all these things that are positive for ourselves. And then naturally they become positive for the rest of the world as well. So yeah, the action, those are pretty important. It's where the rubber hits the road, right? You can have all these ideas and concepts, right, about a spiritual path and all that, but you know, if you're not like doing these things properly, you know, with not being, not killing insects, animals, not you know, taking things that aren't given, all these things, then there's not too much you can do on the spiritual path. It's going to be very genuine. It's all going to be kind of superficial, unless you're really living, walking the walk, talking the talk. You know, you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk. So yeah, this is an important one. Right, livelihood. Okay, anyone want to take us through this one? Okay, I can do this one then. We've got these 5 trades that should not be taken up. Trading in weapons, living beings, meat, intoxicants, and poisons. So these are just the real basic things to avoid. But we also, as much as we can, we want to try to use our means of livelihood, how we make our living, to make a positive result in the world. So first of all, we want to, like this quote from Ajahn Chah says, Buddhism teaches us to make earnest efforts in the things we do, but our actions should not be mixed with desire. They should be performed with the aim of letting go and realizing non-attachment. So I think that kind of goes back a little to what William was talking about in the beginning about the right view. Like, you know, you want to do all these positive things, but as much as possible, not from an ego point of view, or, oh, I'm so great, I'm doing all these great things, but more from a, you know, just letting go of your sense of self or ego.
I have a question.
um, I'm sorry, did someone have a question? There was someone outside the window just said hello. Did someone say they had a question?
Yes, it's Michelle. Yes,
Go ahead.
it's Michelle.
Hi.
So if you don't, if you don't have a livelihood that's trading in the meat industry, one thing that falls out from that is the consumption of meat. So is this saying that Buddhists should be vegetarian?
Yeah, that's a good question, really good question. In general, from a Buddhist perspective, it is a better choice to not eat meat. And because it is taking life, even though you're not the one who's killing the animal, it's you're taking part in that process. So, and many of the monks and nuns of from the different countries and different cultures are vegetarian as well. In Tibet, it was a little difficult because of the climate. You know, Tibet's very high altitude. I believe it's on a plateau that starts at about 5,000 feet above sea level and goes up from there. So a lot of the country's above the timberline, and so it's very hard to grow many plants as well. So the Tibetans were mostly nomads, and their diet was based on the yak. So they had yak milk and yak butter and then yak meat when the animal was at the end of its life. So, you know, in the Tibetan culture, they did eat meat to survive, but it's always been considered more meritorious and more wholesome to not. And, you know, in our country, we have so many alternatives, you know, to meat, you know, high protein powder this and fake meat that, and, you know, we have such a variety of foods available to us that, you know, we can do fine without it. So it's kind of an individual choice how you want to approach that. In general, it is better if you can be vegetarian. It's better karma, it's better intentions. But I know that doesn't work for everybody. You know, some people get tired, or, you know, low energy if they're not eating enough meat, or other, for medical reasons, people are sometimes advised to eat meat. So yeah, that's a little bit of a tricky one.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So then we just have these other 8 things that, having to do with livelihood or living a layperson's life. And this is advice from the Buddha to do these 8 different things. So the first 4 is to accomplish with persistent effort and be diligent in your work. And the second is, you know, accomplishment of protection. So you want to protect and guard over the wealth you've acquired. And the third is good friendship. So, you know, you want to dwell with people that are of mature virtue. So choosing good friends. And the fourth is balanced living. So not being too extravagant or too miserly. So keeping that kind of middle way. And then the next 4 are accomplishment in faith. So the person places faith in the enlightenment of the Buddha and the fact that we can also become enlightened. Faith in moral discipline, following the 5 precepts we just talked about, you know, not killing, not stealing, etc. Accomplishment in generosity. So the person dwells in a home with a mind devoid of stinginess. and accomplishment of wisdom. The person possesses the wisdom that sees into the arising and passing away of phenomena. So again, what William was kind of pointing to in the beginning, understanding the nature of reality. So all those things we try to keep in mind as we're kind of doing our daily work life. So then the next one is right effort. Anyone want to take us through that?
I had a question, Rosalind. This is Maria. And the one that the screen that you just, the previous ones, it said guard over wealth acquired.
Mm-hmm.
That just sounds like it's, what's the idea behind that? Because I mean, I'm thinking it sounds a little materialistic. I don't know.
Right. Sounds like something our financial planners would be.
Or like making a priority of material things. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I know what you mean. It sounds a little funny. It's like not what you usually read in the Buddhist teachings.
Yeah.
But what I think is just saying is like to be prudent, you know, to not be wasteful or, you know, kind of
Okay.
not frivolous with the outcomes of your work. So, you know, you work hard, you make effort, but so then you also, you know, protect the results of your work too. So I think that's what it's pointing to. I don't think it's like hoarding or like you should always have insurance. I don't think
it's sort of
like that.
Yeah. I guess it's sort of like using it, you know, employing your wealth responsibly or with thought. You know, thought. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think exactly. That's exactly what it's pointing to.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So then right effort is the energetic will to prevent unwholesome states of mind from arising, and then also to prevent unwholesome states of mind that have already arisen from manifesting. So, you know, this is just like protecting your mind from, you know, things that you know are going to draw you astray. Like, you know, if you go out with this person, you know, you're going to end up drinking too much or whatever like that. So you just, okay, instead of doing that, you just don't go out with that person. Or if you do, you go out to a place where there's no drinking, you know, drinks being offered or whatever. So it's like you protect your mind from having unwholesome states arise or manifest. And then the second, you know, the third and fourth are kind of the opposite. You encourage wholesome states of mind that have not arisen to manifest. So maybe reading a Dharma book or, you know, reading something kind of a positive, something, you know, is going to be a positive, kind of supportive of a positive state of mind. And then the fourth is develop and bring to perfection the good and wholesome states of mind already present. So, you know, encouraging yourself, you know, instead of watching that violent movie, maybe I will meditate. And, you know, that spend, you know, a half an hour, meditating instead of watching, you know, something that's really violent. And that's going to help really develop my wholesome states of mind in a much stronger way. So it's that kind of thing, you know, the choices we make, you know, trying to make as positive choices as we can. Any comments or questions on that one? Okay, go on to the next. This is just, you know, a correlation to that right effort is, you want to keep this to the middle way. So not too obsessive about one thing, things on one hand, or too loose on the other. So not too tight, not too loose, but just really focused on the middle path between being too lazy or trying too hard. Oops. Then we come to right mindfulness.
Rosalind, can you talk a little bit about that? Those two things, trying too hard and too lazy. Is there any more teachings on that?
Yes. So there's one here, right here. It's about the musical instrument. And so this was the Buddha's teaching to this person, Sona. And he's saying, and what do you think when the strings of your vina, which is like a lute, were neither too taut nor too loose, but tuned to be right on pitch? Was your vina in tune and playable? And the answer was, yes, Lord. And so then the Buddha goes on, in the same way, Sonam, over-aroused persistence leads to restlessness. Overly slack persistence leads to laziness. So that's just one kind of very simple, down-to-earth example. If your strings are too tight on your instrument, that doesn't sound right. And if they're too loose, they don't sound right. But then also, I've been on this Buddhist path for many years, and we've had many people come and go through our community. And, I think with Americans, mostly our problem is too lazy. Most of us are not too overzealous, so, it's like, oh yeah, I could meditate today, but maybe I'll just wait and do it tomorrow instead, that kind of thing. Or, oh yeah, there's so many books to read, but I think I'll just wait till next week and start a new book. That's that sort of thing. I think most of us can relate to that. But I've also seen a lot of people that are a little too zealous. They're like, oh, I have to read all these books, before I can start on the path. And then, if I don't do that, then I'm not going to be a good Buddhist. And, and look at that person over there. Why aren't they studying as hard as I am, So it's kind of like this a little bit obsessive, compulsive kind of attitude is kind of what it's pointing to, I think. So I think that's really what this is pointing to. It's like, you don't want to be too obsessive, too hard on yourself, and you don't want to be too easy on yourself, too lax. You want to just make a really nice, steady, forward moving effort. That's going to ultimately be the most successful for most people. Because if you do this thing where you're trying too hard all the time, you're going to get burnt out and give up and say, oh, this path's too hard, whatever. And then if you're too lazy, it's like, they have this expression about coming back from a land of jewels empty-handed, and that's possible too. I mean, you can spend a long time at a Buddhist center, go to lots of classes, and if you don't really take these teachings to heart, and put them into your life, then they don't really have much power. You've kind of lost the chance you've had to have them really transform your life. So
Seems like this is a really good instruction for when we're practicing meditation too, because if we get too tight about meditate like that, the mind can just totally spin out of control. And if we, on the other hand, if we get a little bit too relaxed, we could just fall asleep or go into a daydream coma or almost anything. It's like a balancing act.
yeah, really good point. Really good point. So, yeah, all of these things, you know, the meditation and also these, all these kind of moral guidance, you know, that's been given. I think all of this is, we need to practice in this way, you know, this middle way, not too obsessive, not too loose. So does that-
Rosalind?
yeah. uh-huh.
What does Buddhism have to say about the superego in terms of, you know, the commentary about how you're doing with yourself, and whether it's kind of chastising or non-existent? Does Buddhism have anything to say about the superego in how we are performing or not these tasks that are put before us?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, you know, as much as we can, we want to kind of keep that view, like that William was kind of expressing at the beginning, where, you know, we want to remember that that super ego, there's not anything real there. It's not a real entity. It kind of appears as real, but if you kind of delve a little bit more deeply into it, you can just see that, you know, your thoughts, your body even is just made up of all these atoms and molecules, and there's not that big a difference between us and our environment. You know, there's a permeability between membrane between us and our world, and we have this kind of erroneous understanding of our reality, that, you know, we're this being, this entity that's separate from everything else, and we've got this ego or super ego, even, you know, watching all of our actions and thoughts. But as much as we can realize that that entity is kind of an illusion, they have, in Buddhism, they have a lot of metaphors for that. You know, it's kind of like a bubble or a dream. You know, there's no real reality to it. And I think that's the key to being able to not take all that too seriously or as reality. Does that kind of point to
Yes.
some understanding?
Yes. Yes. And in terms of our practice, whether we're too enthusiastic or too lazy, it seems like ripe fodder for the superego, you know, in terms of whether we're being too enthusiastic and over trying, and then there's the superego commentary about that, or whether we're our strings are too lax and we're too lazy, and superego about that. But what you're saying is that really that's just an illusion all on our practice, whether it's too lax or too vigorous, that's an illusion as well?
Well, yes, and it's kind of like when what you're saying is like our practice. Is our practice too tight or too loose? But it's the our, the I, or the me, or my. That's the part that's kind of the illusion. So, so then,
Yes.
yeah. Okay. So then, you know, and by what do you call it? If the I is an illusion, well, then the loose or tight is also an illusion, right? But ultimately, but
So then the question becomes who is doing the practice?
Yeah, and who's too tight or who's too loose? I think that's maybe more the place
Okay.
to watch the that illusory nature.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so now we're on to right mindfulness. Anyone want to take us through that? Okay, well, this is a very popular word these days. And it's actually very interesting to go back to what the Buddha said about them, about mindfulness. And it's actually really quite down to earth. Right mindfulness is to be diligently aware, mindful, and attentive to first the body. So, just being aware of what's going on in your body, objective and subjective. So, your sense of your own physical body, and then what you're feeling and smelling and sensing through your 5 senses. The second is sensations of feelings. So that's the pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feeling that we're experiencing. Third is activities of mind, the citta. So aware of experiencing anything having to do with ignorance, confusion, greed, grasping, all the grasping qualities, or hatred. So what's going on in the mind? And then the fourth is the other aspects of mind or emotion. So our ideas, our thoughts, our concepts, emotions, desires, images, all the things that all the movies that kind of get run in our consciousness. So these are the things we want to be aware of. Oops, went too far. So it's mainly, just being present, not lost in daydreams. And there's this nice quote I have here from Rick Hanson. Mindfulness is simply a continuous, non-judgmental, accepting awareness of your inner and outer world, especially your inner one, the flow of experience. It is a very grounded awareness, not some kind of lofty mystical state. So, this is something we can touch through meditation most easily, I believe. Just really getting in touch with, what's really going on, in ourselves and in our world around us. Just very practical. What's happening? What are we feeling? What are we sensing? What are we hearing? Those kinds of things. And meditation practices focuses on this developing this mindfulness. And there's 2 traditional forms called samatha and vipassana. And so samatha is the calm abiding, which steadies and concentrates the mind. And vipassana is insight, which enables one to see, explore, and discern. So those are a little bit more, advanced aspects of mindfulness. Oh, and I really like this quote from this wonderful Indian teacher named Deepa Ma. And, she was a mother and a grandmother, but also just a wonderful spiritual teacher. And she said, even while she was talking, she was meditating. When she was talking, eating, working, thinking about her daughter, playing with her grandson, none of these activities hampered her practice because she did them all with mindfulness. And she said, when I'm moving, shopping, everything, I'm always doing it with mindfulness. I know there are things I have to do, but they aren't problems. And then she asked, how awake are you in your life? Are you just thinking about being mindful, or are you really doing it? So I just like this quote because I think it's, you know, kind of expresses just how down to earth this can be, really. It's kind of just really just being aware all the time, you know, no matter what you're doing, whether you're sleeping or shopping or eating or taking care of the kids or the grandkids. You can have you can be mindful and aware. So, any comments on mindfulness before we go on to right concentration, which is what we're focusing on tonight? So right concentration, and what is the development of concentration when developed and pursued leads to a pleasant abiding in the here and now? So this is a question the Buddha asks, and then here's some of his answers. So basically we have these 4 stages of dhyana or meditation. And in the first stage, the passionate desires and unwholesome thoughts stemming from ignorance, greed, and hatred are released, and feelings of joy and happiness are maintained. So I think that's one of the maybe the first things we kind of experience when we start meditating is when we can let our desires and unwholesome thoughts go for a bit. We find that, oh, you know, this is kind of a really joyful experience, you know, this is very nice. And, you know, we can kind of just feel some positive, pleasant experience from our meditation. And then secondly, we kind of go into a little bit deeper state of consciousness where all intellectual activities are stilled. Tranquility and one-pointedness of mind is developed, and the feelings of joy and happiness are retained. So those of you who've kind of done some longer meditation periods, you've probably noticed this, you know, the first few minutes you're thinking of all the things that you desire, you know, oh, what am I going to have to eat after this practice? And, you know, oh, I'm kind of angry at that person. You have all these thoughts and emotions kind of going on, but then after a while they kind of settle a bit. And then after a little bit longer, they settle a little more. And then I think that's what this second state is talking about. You know, you all of the thoughts start to kind of calm down after a while, and you begin to touch a tranquility and one-pointedness of mind. And the feelings of joy and happiness are still there. It's still like a positive experience, but there's no content anymore. It's just like, just kind of pleasant, joyful experience without too many thoughts happening. And then the third stage, where that feeling of joy as an active sensation begins to disappear, and the disposition towards happiness still remains, in addition to mindful equanimity. So then we, as we get a little bit calmer, or maybe have a little more experience with meditation, we can get to a point where we're not so focused on joyful feelings anymore. We're just like very, there's an equanimity quality to the mind. So, you know, we're not really attached to the pleasant feelings. We're not pushing away the uncomfortable feelings. We're just kind of accepting things as they are. So we're just kind of really open to whatever qualities there are and accepting everything as it is. And then the fourth is when all sensation, even happiness and unhappiness, joy and sorrow disappear, and then only pure equanimity and awareness are remaining. So, you know, you can get to a place where you just really kind of go beyond thought, and you're just kind of sensing the energy of your own body, speech, and mind, and the energy surrounding you. And there's just kind of an openness between the two, between what's within your body and mind and what's without. And there's just a very even-handed kind of awareness that you're experiencing. So those are the stages that we can experience through meditation. Any questions or comments on that at all? Is that relevant to any of the experiences any of you have had with meditation? Have you experienced any of these levels at all? Okay, well, maybe it's something to think about when you do your meditation practice. Try to notice, you know, maybe which of these 4 levels you're functioning in. And maybe, you know, usually or often in one meditation practice, you'll go through all of these maybe, or at least several of them. So, you know, it's kind of interesting just to watch that, how that works. We have a practice we do once a year in our community. It's actually in all the Tibetan, at least all the Tibetan Nyingma communities around the world. Excuse me, we do a practice of celebrating the life of Longchenpa, who is one of the great scholars of and practitioners of the Buddha, of the Nyingma Buddhist tradition. And so we meditate for about 4 or 5 days, and you know, we sleep, but we also usually have a session during the night where you come in for a couple hours. But mostly for 4 days, all we're doing is chanting and meditating. So you can really, when you're meditating for that long of a period, you really can see yourself go through all these different stages. So it's kind of interesting to watch. And I recommend it if you can ever do a really long meditation experience. You know, a few days at a time, or I know there's these Vipassana retreats that are 10 days, and I have a lot of friends who've taken them, and they've said it's just really quite amazing to meditate for, you know, such a long period of time. It really does transform your consciousness, and helps you understand these stories of Tibetans that become enlightened after they've meditated for 12 years, or things like that. Because you do start to go into these different levels of consciousness that really are much different than our normal day-to-day consciousness. So something to look forward to if you haven't tried that yet. Okay, so now we're ready to move into our practice session, practice part of our class. And we'll do a Kumne exercise. So let's all stand up. And we're gonna do the flying exercise. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. And I thought for the last class, we'll go ahead and do that once again. I know some of you have done this with me a lot, but I think it's a really nice one. And we're going to do it to each of the 5 directions. And what I thought we could do is just really kind of call the positive qualities of each of the directions into us, and let it inspire us for our practice, and, you know, as a conclusion for this class we've been working with together. So feet about hip distance apart, hands by your sides, and you want to just slowly lift your arms And let them rise up all the way overhead. And once they're overhead, you want to give a nice stretch up to the sky. Deep breath into the chest and the belly. And slowly let it out as the arms slowly come down to your sides. This is a nice exercise to release tension in the shoulders and neck, open up the flow of energy between the body, the breath, and the mind. So we're going to start now with facing the eastern direction. So as your arms come up, you can think of the sun rising in the east and the bright, clear energy it brings. The element's water, and emotion is anger, and transformed it becomes all-accomplishing wisdom. Mirror-like wisdom. It's a very clear reflection of what's around us. Nice stretch up to the sky. Deep breath into the chest and the belly. And slowly let it out as the arms slowly come back down to your sides. And if you'd like to take a quarter turn to your right and then face the southern direction, you can let your arms come up from your sides. And the southern direction is the color yellow, element is earth, emotion is pride, transformed becomes equanimity. You stretch up towards the sky. Deep breath into the belly and the chest. Slowly let it out as the arms slowly come back down to your sides. And you can take another quarter turn to your right, facing the west now. So as your arms come up, you can think of the beautiful reds of the sunset. And that's this color in this direction, and the element is fire. And it's, the emotion is passion or greed, all the grasping qualities, and transformed it becomes compassion. Very deep caring for all beings, all their suffering, doing what we can to alleviate it. Nice stretch up to the sky. Feet really planted on the earth. Deep breath into the chest and belly. And slowly let it out as the arms slowly come back down to your sides. Let's take a quarter turn to our right again, and we're facing the north. So as your arms come up, you can think of the beautiful greens of the forests in the north. That's the color in this direction. The element is air. Nice stretch up to the sky. Deep breath into the chest and belly. And slowly let it out as the arms slowly come down. And the emotion in this direction is envy or jealousy. And transformed, it becomes all-accomplishing wisdom. So, very dynamic, active quality of helping all beings in every direction. One more quarter turn to our right, and we're facing the east, but we're going to focus on the center. So that means all the space above us and below us, and at our deepest inner core of our center. So as the arms come up, you can think of the beautiful deep royal blue of this direction, and the element is ether, so the atmospheric quality. Nice stretch up to the outer reaches of the solar system. Deep breath into the chest and belly, and slowly let it out as the arms slowly come down to our sides. Okay, so let's go ahead and sit down. We're going to do some chanting and then a little meditation session. So in your meditation session, we can try to see if you can see those 4 different stages at all of meditation that we talked about. So this mantra is for Amitayus, who is the Buddha that helps promote long life, and not only long, but well-lived, so useful. Long, but in a good way. Things accomplishing a lot. There's a number of different mantras for Amitayus, but this is one of the shorter ones. And it was just given to us recently because our teacher, Tartang Tulku, just turned 85 years old this month. And so we made an effort in our community to chant as many of these mantras as we could, dedicated to his longevity. But I feel like, especially where there's so much difficulty with COVID right now in the world, that as much as we can pray for long life for ourselves and our families and loved ones, and for all beings in the world, that it's a good mantra for our times right now. So I'll go ahead and chant it once, and then please join in. Om Amarani Zilan Taye Soha. 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 So we'll just sit silently for a few minutes in our 7 gesture posture, legs forming a nice solid base for the body, hands on the knees, arms relaxed, shoulders are down. If you want, you can lift them up and back and down. Make sure they're in a nice low position. Chest is up and out slightly, helping to straighten the lower part of the spine. Chin is tucked in slightly, helping to straighten the upper part of the spine. And eyes are either closed or gazing gently on the ground in front of us, about 6 feet. And tongue is curled so that we can breathe evenly through both nose and mouth at the same time, which is a nice relaxed way to breathe. And if you'd like, you can visualize the red light from Amitayus's body. He's red in color when he's not gold, coming in through the crown chakra at the top of the head. Then flowing through the head area, beautiful soft red light, touching the throat and breath area, letting the breath become very gentle and calm and smooth. Flowing into the arms and hands, flowing into the torso and the internal organs, flowing down into the legs and feet, relaxing the whole body into this beautiful red light. We can also imagine the light expanding beyond our bodies into the universe, touching all beings with this powerful, energizing light that brings long life and health to all beings. So let's chant our Om Ahum 3 times, dedicating our merit to the benefit of all beings. Om Ahum Om Ahum Om Ahum. So if you'd like to do some practice with this mantra and this aspect of the Eightfold Path, you can work with the Amitayas mantra, and you can ask for guidance in developing your concentration to aid in having a long and meaningful life. Also, if you want to do some observing or journaling about concentration, you might jot down any experiences you have in your meditation where you concentration leads to joy, or even moving beyond feelings of joy to equanimity and to awareness. That's a practice you can do. And I just wanted to thank everybody for joining in this class. It's been a wonderful experience for me to have these discussions with everybody and practice together. And thank you for taking steps towards experiencing a life with more joy and inner strength and less suffering and frustration. And I hope it's going to make a difference in your own life. And then also, that you can become a positive example and positive influence to others that around you in your circle of friends, or even beyond to the world. So thank you for taking these steps in positive directions.
Rosalind, this is Maria. I had a question before you go, and,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a superficial question, but in the figurines and the slides that you have, there's these very beautiful figurines. Are those drawings or those photographs? What are those? Where are they from? I'm just curious.
Yeah, they're mostly photographs of statues, and I just get them off the web. And
Oh, okay.
you can type in like Buddha statues, and then when you get the search, you hit the image section, where that is up at the top.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then I just go through, and sometimes I've searched Buddhas in nature, Buddha statues in nature, or Buddha statues around the world.
Wow.
And there's these wonderful ones that like these tremendous, huge monumental size ones. So that's where I get them. So
Yeah, they're beautiful. Some of them are just very calming to look at. So, but
I know.
but thank you so much. Also, thank you.
Yeah, there's something about the Buddha image that is very calming to look at.
It's true.
Yeah.
Thank you for the class. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And I want to mention that we do have a new class. It's going to start 2 weeks from tonight. And it's called Developing Wisdom and Compassion. And it's inspired by the life of the Buddha. So we're kind of going to go through the different stages of the Buddha's life, starting in his previous lives when he was an animal in many different forms. And there's these beautiful stories called the Jataka tales that tell about the Buddha's previous lives. And the first class will focus on that. And then move into, his early life was lived in the palace, very, pleasure oriented. And then he left the palace. He saw that wasn't going to be answer to his wish to transcend the suffering of the world. And so he went and lived an ascetic life for several years. And then he realized, these two extremes weren't working. He needed the middle way, like we talked about in our class. So he took some food. He was, very emaciated, but he took some food, and then he sat down under the Bodhi tree and vowed to not get up until he became enlightened. And so that took several weeks, but it did happen. Of course, that was after several years of ascetic practices, and then he wasn't sure if he'd be able to express his understanding to people, how his insight that he had gotten. But some of his former ascetic friends came by and saw him and, asked him to explain to them what he had done to achieve the state. They could just see him. He was so radiant. And so then he began to teach, and he found like he could, even though these things were hard to put into words, that he could express these ideas in a way that would help people. So he spent, I think he became enlightened at about 35 years of age, and he lived to about 85. So for 50 years, he was able to teach, very broadly throughout India. And so we'll, when we get to that section, we'll talk about some of his teachings. And then at one point, he went to visit his mother in Tushita heaven to give her teachings. So there's that experience. And then finally, there's the parinirvana when he was passing, and his final teachings to his disciples. So there's some very beautiful renditions of the Buddha's life. There's one published by Dharma Publishing called Voice of the Buddha. And, if you wanted to read the long version of it as we're going along, that's beautiful. And it's very beautifully illustrated as well with many of the Tibetan tankas. But anyway, I'm going to be co-teaching this with Linda Copenhagen, who is, she's becoming the co-director here at Ratnaling. So I'm actually moving on to Odeon, which is our other retreat center, in a couple weeks. And Linda's going to be taking my place here at Ratnaling. And we've been kind of working together for several weeks now in transition. And so I'm very excited to be co-teaching with her. She's very excited about this material. And so I think it's going to be a really wonderful class. So I hope you'll join us. Anyway, thank you everybody for joining us and for making this a really positive experience for me, and I hope for you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Really, truly inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosalind.
Thank you, Michelle. Good luck with your little mice.
Thank you. Be well.
All right, thank you.
Good luck with your new journey, Rosalind.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, good night.
Very nice. Yeah, thank you for, I feel like I've had a special audience, So